Alright, we're back with another post-commentary video. This was a really interesting game and really fun to play, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it, so I'm really happy to share it with you. So the starting hand isn't really that great. We're going first. Food and personal supplies, the round one goal. It's kind of a crummy one to have. I'm looking at grabbing that nuthatch as my forest bird, and I'm predicting that my opponent is going to grab that yellow-headed blackbird on their first activation. Common goldeneye is always a good option for egg laying if you can support it properly, of course. And I'm debating between falconer and passerine specialist, I believe it was. I'm calling off the top of my head. And I'm kind of making the call here that it's probably going to be falconer that I'm going to grab. White-faced ibis qualifies for falconer, but it's very expensive, slow out of the gate, so I'm probably not going to grab that bird. And I am thinking about passerine here, because with that nuthatch, and I'm thinking about, engine birds, how many predators am I actually going to see? And I spent some time deliberating on which bonus card I'm going to grab, but I will wind up picking falconer here. And I am going to go with the goldeneye for my wetland body, and I'm really considering the snipe as well. I don't really like these birds. It's really dangerous to hand cards to your opponent in the beginning of the game, and you're really rolling those dice. You're like increasing the amount, or you're increasing the impact that luck has on the game. Because a lot of these games really boil down to who draws the best cards the earliest. So the Wilson snipe is a good way to kind of sometimes hand the game to your opponent. But other times the luck goes your way and you're the one that gets the great cards. So I'm looking at just establishing a early wetland just to bolster my card drawing capability and just dig for some better options. The Oriole is a okay bird, but if your opponent ends up just focusing on like wetlands, or they start pushing in early grasslands for some reason, or they have a raven or a crow or anything like that, it really invalidates the Oriole. It becomes much better in like a 3 or 4 or 5 player game. So I have settled on the snipe and the goldeneye here, and I have picked falconer. I'm of course looking at the sparrowhawk as well for a falconer option. It's a decent bird. But I'm going to be grabbing the nuthatch on my first activation, and I'm predicting that my opponent will grab the yellow-headed blackbird. Wilson snipe also does benefit the round 2 goal here, and it has synergy with the round 3 goal. So that really makes it better. Even if I don't leverage the card drawing power, it's going to serve me in other ways. Alright, my opponent kept 3 cards and a fish and a wheat. And seeing someone keep a fish like that is always kind of a scary prospect. You always think about Franklin's gull or white stork, but that could very well be something like great-crested grebe or black-throated diver, a good wetland card drawing bird. So we take our nuthatch as planned, and one thing I forgot to mention previously is that the nuthatch also has synergy with my goldeneye, so that's always a good thing. And the sparrowhawk as well not only has synergy with my falconer bonus card, but also the round 4 goal of white and no powers. So we're kind of looking at that here. We're probably going to snatch that up on my next activation. So there we see Atlantic Puffin flip up in the tray, and now I'm kind of in a bit of a dilemma here. I'm thinking, Puffin is such a great card. It has synergy with round goals, but it's so expensive, it's going to be hard to get onto the board. But we have so much of the game in front of us, it's likely that we can manage to pick up the 3 fish in order to play it. And it's kind of like the pre-Benelli's Benelli's. It was the big fat point bomb that you wanted to see before the end of the game, before the European expansion came out. So I'm really looking at that Puffin. It's like, okay, well, Sparrowhawk is probably going to take a back seat here, and I got to take the Puffin. And I don't want my opponent to have that. So I'm kind of looking at the snipe here, kind of considering playing a wetland bird first before drawing cards, because it always sucks to take multiple single draw card action because they're just inefficient. And it really makes it hard to overcome those inefficient actions later in the game. You really have to have some large point scoring actions late in the game to make up for multiple, single resource gaining activations. So I do opt to take the Puffin here. And we flip up the yellow-billed cuckoo for my opponent. And I'm not too worried about that at this point in time. I'm not really going to be developing any type of grasslands at the moment. So my opponent doesn't really have any type of incentive to draw it right now. And it's expensive. But it's always one of those cards that's kind of a good meta pick. Because having a good grasslands by the end of the game is usually how most games end. Not all, but a lot of games resort to endgame egg spam. And my opponent does leave it. There is a tree swallow in the tray. And I'm assuming since my opponent has taken that yellow-headed blackbird, they're probably going to want to take the tree swallow as well. And they'll have a really good two-body wetlands there, scoring points and drawing cards. And they have the opportunity then to push some type of mid to late game mass tucking engine based around a Chiff Chaff or a Mute Swan. That's always a scary prospect. I'm thinking to myself, do I deny that tree swallow? It does have synergy with my Goldeneye, but I think at this moment it's just not worth the action to draw that single card again, as we previously talked about. So I'm going to throw it on my Goldeneye here, start building out my infrastructure, and I have the wheat on deck to play my nuthatch. And then I'm looking at gaining food, picking up the worm for my snipe, laying eggs, and then getting the snipe down, and then just continuing to draw cards and dig for better options to further develop my forest or wetlands or maybe even some great grassland birds. I'm not too concerned about the round goal here. There we see the blackbird from my opponent as predicted. Really, these early stages of the game in round one, you just want to develop your resource gathering and point scoring capability, your engines, as quickly and efficiently as possible. And the food and personal supply goal is kind of counter to that. It wants you to hoard food instead of actually using it to play birds and score points. So there we throw down our nuthatch. And Chipping Sparrow flips up in the tray here. It's like, okay, I have to take that. It's a good egg producer, builds out my forest, and it's really just one of the best cards in the game, quite frankly. We flip up Golden Eagle. That'd be a good card to have by the end of the game. But at this point, I'm not going to go out of my way to grab it. I don't suspect it's something my opponent wants, so it could be something that lingers in the tray a little bit. I want to gain food again and get this Chipping Sparrow down so I can start getting eggs from my gain food action. And now I kind of have the option of, well, I can play the Chipping Sparrow, and I can gain food a couple times for the future, and that actually helps toward this crummy round goal. Having those eggs, because I'm generating the eggs and the food simultaneously, and you need both of those to play more birds. And now a wood duck flips up in the tray. It's like, oh my gosh, now I got to take this as well. So even though we're taking these inefficient single draw card actions, we really have to take them because it's really good cards coming up in the tray. Common Nightingale, that's one of my favorite cards. It's a good card to have, but I'm thinking, even if my opponent takes that, they're going to be handing us food, and that's really going to help us with these expensive cards in hand, the Wood Duck and the Puffin. So it's only going to help us. I think it actually helps us more than it helps them, quite frankly, based on my opponent's current board state, which isn't much, and it could turn into something more, but I'm really feeling good about this position right now. So they do take the Nightingale, and they only have a fish in their supply, so they're going to have to take an inefficient gain food action here. And now I'm looking at getting this Chipping Sparrow down, followed by the Wood Duck. And now I'm looking at this snipe, and I'm saying, you know what? I'm not going to need the snipe for card draw, and I need a lot of food right now, so I'm going to discard it here to help accelerate my early game into this Wood Duck Chipping Sparrow. Pick up a wheat and a worm there, and score another point off the nuthatch. So my opponent did take the gain food action. They took a cherry, and they have 2 food in their supply now. I'm looking at this, and I'm speculating that maybe they have a Franklin's Gull because they've been holding on to that fish like that. But I try to play my Chipping Sparrow and realize that I need eggs, so I take the lay egg action here. And I'm going to have 1 food versus my opponent's 2, so they will win this round goal, but I'm not too worried about that right now. It's minimal points as far as round goal points go, and I'm just working to further build out this, what is amounting to be an incredible forest engine. So there we get an egg on our golden eye. That's always helpful. And we're going to come in second here, which is not a big deal. And we're going second now, and I see that catbird in the tray, and it's like, oh gosh, repeat wood duck. Like, my opponent can't let me get that catbird. If they do, wood duck is just going to be a monster. You know, repeat wood duck, repeat white stork is just basically handing your opponent the game. And I'm really planning on my opponent drawing that catbird. I need to get my Chipping Sparrow down here to continue to gain eggs and food while I work on getting the food for this wood duck. And my opponent did take the catbird. And I'm looking at the screech owl that flips up here. It is a predator bird, but I throw down my Chipping Sparrow, because that's gotta happen. And I'm thinking, okay, screech owl is one of those birds. It's not that great. You're probably not playing it unless you have like rodentologist or falconer or forester maybe. And I don't want to take the single card draw action to gain that owl. So I got all the food for the wood duck in the tray. And there we see the nightingale for my opponent, so I'm expecting more food. And the screech owl is not something I'm expecting my opponent to draw here, especially since they've now committed the nightingale to their wetlands. They're going to be trying to dig for like the chiff chaff and mute swan to try to build out those mass tucking engines. So I'm assuming what I'm trying to get at is that the screech owl is probably going to stick around for me later. So I gain the food for my wood duck here, and I have the eggs on deck. And we're going to drop that, and I'm going to gain food and work on accumulating fish for my puffin. There's 1 in the tray right now. And then I'll probably grab the screech owl off the wood duck, barring a better option. So there my opponent drew cards, and they handed out a cherry, which is fine by me. I want all the food I can get, no matter what food it is. So here we throw down the wood duck, pretty straightforward. Should probably burn the egg off the golden eye, but I don't do that yet. I only have 2 cavity nest birds anyway, so the golden eye isn't in danger of filling up here. And one more point about the screech owl, it does have a cavity nest, so it has further synergy with the golden eye. That just further incentivizes drawing and playing that bird. More cherries for my opponent. And they're accumulating the cherries to play that catbird into their wetlands, or the mockingbird. I always get those 2 mixed up. The repeater. So I'm sitting here thinking about this screech owl. I'm going to gain food here and draw cards. I'm also looking at the grosbeak because it gets me on the board for the round goal. And it's not a bad food gaining bird in general. So I'm looking at the owl, and I'm deliberating about the grosbeak as well. Looking at the points and the synergy with what I have going on. And I'm thinking about the grosbeak, but I think that's another card that's just going to linger a little bit. So I'm going to just see what I get off the top of the deck. Great Crested Grebe, usually a good card, but I have a wood duck in the forest, so I don't really need to rely on my wetlands card draw. And we're going to get rid of the grebe here. Common yellowthroat flips up. Generally another great card drawing bird for the wetlands. But we don't need it. And I wonder here if my opponent isn't going to grab it. If they do, it's kind of a tell that they might have a mute swan or a chiffchaff. Because they already have a decent wetlands. They're going to be drawing a decent amount of cards. So they don't necessarily need the yellowthroat, and they don't grab it here. I would imagine if they had a mute swan or a chiffchaff, that's like a gimme. You have to take the yellowthroat here just to help facilitate the point scoring ability of those mass tucking birds, especially with a repeater on deck. So I'm thinking about playing the screech owl or drawing the grosbeak here. I have turns left in the round, 3 turns left. I could afford to just look off the top of the deck for one more turn and see what I got going. And then the second to last turn, I could grab the grosbeak off the wood duck and then play it on the last turn of the round. Thinking about playing this screech owl first. It does improve my food gaining ability by 50%. And that's what I opt to do here. So now I have 3 cavity nests for my goldeneye. We're not in danger of overfilling it. And now I can gain 3 food. And I can still pick up the grosbeak off the wood duck and play it to get on the board for the round goal. And the screech owl is not really a bird that you want to play into a forest engine like this, but we have so much synergy going on that its general qualities make it worth it. There we pick up 2 food from my opponent. They repeated their nightingale, which is pretty great. We're going to gain food here. And I'm thinking about what I need for the grosbeak, so I need a wheat for that. Pick up another wheat and a worm. Get the cash on the owl, which is great. I'm going to draw one off the top here, and now I'm looking at bald eagle. And that, in my mind, is going to replace the grosbeak because it works for the round goal, and the bird feeder is at 1 die, so we could get the reroll and potentially gain more fish in order to play the Atlantic puffin right after it. So I'm going to pass on the grosbeak here and actually opt for the bald eagle. Can force the eagle down with all this excess food my opponent is giving us. And too bad it's not a predator. It is a white power bird as well, and a wetland bird, so it works for the remaining 3 round goal bonuses. And then we see Eurasian Nutcracker, which is a staple of strong forest engines, and I'm looking at this now. I have the food to play it. It's only a 5-point bird. It does get me on the board for the round goal, and there's plenty of game left, 2 rounds left, and I'm thinking, will the amount of wheat that I get off the bird feeder equal or exceed the value of the bald eagle here? And I'm kind of banking that, yes, the Nutcracker will be worth more points by the end of the game than the bald eagle. So I am going to discard it as much as I would love to play that bird. And I'm really looking at that Nutcracker here. And there my opponent drops Benelli's Eagle to have another bird that's worth more than 4 points. That's always a big slap across the face to see one of those big eagles like that. So good for my opponent there. And we are going to complete our forest engine with the Eurasian Nutcracker. And then the plan going forward is just going to be gain as much food as we can, get the fish together for the puffin, and just play bombs. And hopefully have a good card quality come off the wood duck. We lose this round goal. Now I'm looking at this tray. we get to go first this round. Blue Heron is a great combo for the Puffin. Flycatcher is a great bomb. And I don't want my opponent to have that ring-billed gull for their wetlands tucking engine here. That's what they really need to start building it out more, is more point-scoring birds for their wetlands. So we can't let them have the gull here. And the bird feeder is primed for a reroll to maximize the amount of wheat we see. No fish. But it shouldn't hurt us too much with all these extra cherries that we're getting from our opponent. So cache some food. We'll get another cache off the owl. It's really performing well. Gonna get the heron and deny the gull. And we have to have a mind on, keep an eye on burning the eggs off the golden eye so we don't overlay here at the end of the round. And the puffin will be the 4th cavity nest to max out the goldeneye. So that's really good synergy there as well. The goldeneye is really coming through for us here. There, my opponent finally gets down the tree swallow. So it's a good thing we denied that gull, because they could have capstoned their wetlands with that. And we're just going to do what forest engines do, gain food. And we really just want to see as many seeds as possible here. Gonna probably pick up the rat for some diversity. And we need more fish than ever here. And I think I deliberate between the seed and the fish. Kind of spend some time trying to figure out, is my opponent just going to keep handing me all kinds of food and I can just force these birds down? Do I want to maximize the point scoring ability of the nutcracker? And I think I end up going for the extra seed here, but I can't remember, so we're going to find out together. And it looks like I do go for the seed here. I've already got 3 cherries, a fish, and a rat. So I've got the food for the puffin, but I need even more food to get the heron down. So I'm really thinking about this. Looking at my opponent's repeat nightingale here. And I'm looking at the round goal as well. My opponent can only get 3 eggs in the wetlands. They're capped pretty hard. They're going to have to take the lay egg action and possibly spend a piece of food for an extra egg if they want to try to win this round goal. Once I have the puffin down, the golden eye is going to be 4 eggs. And if I can get the puffin down and the heron down, preferably, I can complete my round. Yeah, so I'm going to go for the fish here in order to get the heron puffin down so I can use the chipping sparrow to lay eggs on my wetland birds. So it looks like I changed my mind again here. I dipped back out to get back on the bird feeder. So I gain a fish and a wheat. I don't know what I was thinking there. I'm getting a fish and a wheat there. And I draw the king rail, and I'm looking at this flycatcher. It's a good bomb. I have the food for it. King rail I'm probably not going to play because it's going to cost me 2 eggs to get it down, so it's a 2-point play. So I'll need a 6-point bonus card to match the flycatcher. So I choose to discard the king rail here. It is a white power bird. I'm kind of having second thoughts there. But I think the flycatcher is going to be the better bird for me at this point. There we see the titmouse pop up. We can't play it, so it's worthless to us. So there we get some more food from our opponent. Now I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking my chipping sparrow could lay eggs on my heron puffin. Usually you'd want to save these type of plays closer to the end of the game, especially when your opponent is handing out a ton of food. because they could wind up handing you a bunch of fish, like the fish I need to play these birds. But I already have so much food, and I have a reason to play these birds now. They're going to help me win the round goal and burn eggs off my GoldenEye. And we get an ecologist and an omnivore expert. And actually, ecologist is looking like it's going to be the better play here. We've already got the flycatcher on deck to score an extra 2 points off of that. And we're going to keep our eye out for future grassland bird plays to make ecologist even better. And now my opponent hands us double fish the turn after we play heron puffin, so that's kind of annoying, but food is not a problem for us. They have 3 fish here. It can't be Atlantic puffin, and it's not going to be great egret. So it could be just about anything like a ninga or black skimmer, something like that, to round out their grasslands, or wetlands rather. So here we just gain more food, gaining seeds, and we get gypped by the bird feeder there on an extra seed. We'll take the cherry we need for the flycatcher, so we can play that at our convenience. Snowy egret could be a predator play into the wetlands. And we draw Franklin's Gull, probably not going to help us at this point. There's really nothing we can do with Franklin's Gull to really make it any type of appealing play in the face of our forest engine. Looking at ecologist, maybe play the Gull for ecologist. It picks up an extra 2 points. Lay an egg in our wetlands. And I'm going to chuck the egret here. It would pick up 2 points from falconer, but it's just a net 4-point play. And we were probably going to score a lot more points from our forest as long as the bird feeder hands us a bunch of seeds. And we have the added benefit of continuing to lay eggs in our wetlands from the chipping sparrow. So there we see double-crested cormorant from my opponent, and the very unconventional play. And now we see repeat cormorant, just like I've seen repeat Canada goose win games. I'm looking at this now going, oh my gosh, he's in a very good position to gain a bunch of fish, and long after I need fish now, and just repeat that cormorant, and that's a pretty good win condition, quite frankly. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this game pans out. I don't think I've ever seen repeat cormorant before. And it's not very often that you even see double-crested cormorant played anyway. So we're just gaining more food, trying to see as many seeds as possible, hoping for as many caches as possible off the owl, drawing more cards off the wood duck, laying more eggs in the wetlands from the chipping sparrow, and turning the white-breasted nuthatch into a caching monster. I think I'm kind of looking at this common cuckoo here. I'm further incentivized to play it due to ecologist. It's possible that I could pick up an egg or two if my opponent tries to win this round goal by taking the lay egg action. It's better than Franklin's Gull as far as total points goes. So I'm strongly considering this here. And ultimately I decided to draw a card off the top. Squawko Heron is not going to help anything. And we discard the heron. I think I actually discard the crossbill here, yeah, because the crossbill is totally worthless because I can't even play it. My opponent hands out even more fish. It's a couple turns too late. They're really going to lean on this repeat cormorant. And they're only going to be able to lay 3 eggs on their blackbird. So we can re-roll the bird feeder here. Scoop up all the seeds. Taking a rat for some diversity. We should probably should have taken the cherry here. I guess I'm trying to secure the rat for future predator plays for falconer. Otherwise, I should have taken the cherry there and left the bird feeder in a state in which I could re-roll it and get more seeds. Bluebird is a great play. We can do a double play with our flycatcher. Merganser is a predator, and we have the food to play it. And I'm looking at it. I think I discard the heron here. I hold on to the Merganser just in case I decide to play it. It does have synergy with the Goldeneye, but we have all the cavity nests we need, so extra cavity nests at this point don't help us. And we are going to miss out on an egg from the Goldeneye here. It's kind of a bummer we didn't see the Bluebird one turn sooner, because then we could have done that double play to burn that egg off the Goldeneye. And we win the round goal handily. And I'm looking at that roseate spoonbill, and I'm thinking my opponent's not going to let me have that. They can't play it, but they're going to deny it from me, because it's another white-powered bird. I have all the food in the world to play it. It's exactly the type of bird that a strong forest engine wants to see, is those expensive point bombs. And there they do take it. More fish from my opponent, so we're just exploding with food here. They repeated their common nightingale twice. They went last round, and they went first this round, so they repeated their nightingale twice. And we just have so much food. And it really is a shame that we didn't see a common starling or a Eurasian collared dove or some of those other birds that discard food to tuck at the end of the round, because that's just exactly the type of bird you want to see with this dedicated forest engine in general, let alone when your opponent is handing you tons of food that you're just not going to be able to use otherwise. So now we're just really trying to secure as many seeds as possible, as usual. Get a good roll there. Take another rat, planning on predators in the future. Got another cache from the owl. Looking at the gallinule here, it's not really going to help us. Longspur, a white-powered bonus card bird, and doesn't matter that we don't have any wheat because we have tons of fish, tons of rats, a couple cherries. Be able to force down this Longspur quite handily. And we really got to burn these eggs off the Goldeneye here in order to not miss out on those 4 points. There we see the double play House Wren Eastern Imperial Eagle, so my opponent got both big eagles, which is kind of to be expected with a dedicated wetland engine like that, drawing so many cards. So they're still in this game. It's scary. But we have bombs of our own to drop here. And I have 4 turns left. Looking at this Merganser, probably not going to play it because my forest engine is just so much better. I think I discard it here for the chance to gain an extra wheat. Should it pop up? And it doesn't, but even so, it's probably the right call to make there. Would have been an extra point. Would have turned that Merganser into 1 extra point. No cash on the owl. So we're not going to see any big eagles off our wood duck now, because they've both been played by my opponent. Deliberating about this egg. And discard the pileated because we can't play it. So our last 3 activations are going to be Bluebird into the Flycatcher, Longspur, and then I take a moment to look at the black-chinned hummingbird because it does burn off the extra egg, the last egg off the Goldeneye, to allow me to get the full 4. And I'm looking at ecologist. I don't have the wetland bird to fill out that fourth column. It would be a 2-point play. I would pick up the extra point from the goldeneye, so 3 points. But I end up, and we get even more fish from my opponent. I end up deciding that the hummingbird is not worth it because it's better to just run my forest and score points that way. I think I take one more forest action here before I drop my bombs, just in case I see a bomb that I want to play instead. And I just accept the fact that I'm going to miss out a couple eggs on my goldeneye. So there we discard the hummingbird for the chance to see an extra seed. And we get gypped, but we get to reroll again. So we do pick up 3 seeds here, which is great. No cash on the owl. Nothing great off the wood duck. And the screech owl has really come through. It's gotten 3 rats. So it's been a very good point scoring bird combined with falconer. Now our last 2 actions are set in stone, bluebird, flycatcher, and longspur. It would be amazing to have the mountain bluebird here as well, because we just got so much food. We could do a triple play. And my opponent is just running their wetlands, and they grabbed worms here, so that kind of telegraphs a warbler drop at the end. There we do our double play. So we're tied for white powers. We're going to pull 1 ahead here with the longspur, but if they do drop a warbler, we'll end up tying on the wrong goal. And they do drop a blue-winged warbler. So we are going to tie there. We answer with our longspur, and we're going to play the most expensive longspurs you've ever seen. All fish. The fishiest longspur ever. And we pull a maxed out nest box builder off the longspur. Incredible pull. We are going to lose 2 eggs on the goldeneye, but I think I've managed to do fairly well here with this engine. It was a very slow wood duck game. We had a very slow round 1, but we were able to put together a really good engine. All that extra food my opponent handed us really helped us just make up that tempo. So if you liked that game, if you thought it was interesting, do me a favor and hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. And we do very well on our bonus cards. Fall behind a little bit on the round goals. We make it back on eggs. And here we're going to get a ton of caches. 31. I think that's the most caches I've ever had in a game. 120 points. Can my opponent's tucks make up for it? It's looking close. 108. So we win 120 to 108. And here's my opponent's board. They had food web experts. So that makes the warbler play even better. Plenty of good cards in hand. And here's one last look at my board. A very good wood duck, chipping sparrow, Eurasian nutcracker, forest engine. And that nuthatch was a monster. 12 caches on that alone. Goldeneye was a great play, helped us out. And what a great, this is probably the best forest engine game I've ever had. So great game, good game to my opponent. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoy it. See you in the next one.